But good evening. My name is Brad Atwell, and I'm coming to you from our Sydney office this evening. And I'd like to, before I begin, just acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of the land of where I'm presenting my talk today. And my talk is going to be on the Everest High Passes Trek. A lot of you might know it as the Everest Three Passes Trek. If you walk around Nepal, you'll notice that the maps and the beanies and everything is highlighted towards that. And this is a serious trek. A lot of people probably are tuning in because they've looked at the itinerary and it looks very comprehensive. And it is. There's no doubt about that. Out of all the treks in the Everest region, this is the most comprehensive itinerary that will take in all the key highlights. But I've put this slide up for a reason. Warning, do not choose this trek just because it is the most comprehensive trek in the Everest region. It's easy at sea level to romanticize an itinerary. I'll go over what this trek includes and how much it covers. But it's also important to pay attention to the detail. And the detail on this trek I'm going to outline to you. So, as you enter Sagarmatha National Park, the Everest region, Everest being the English name, Sagarmatha, the Nepali name for Mount Everest, and Chomolungma, the Tibetan name for Mount Everest. And I like this map as you enter the region because it gives you an idea of the region, all sort of the green area or the tree line, and then you start to see the mountains all around. Just get my mouse. Ama Dablam, you've got Nuptse, Everest is just off the page here, but this is the entire region, and your trek essentially will cover all the key highlights. And over to the side here, you'll see why I've said just be careful what you choose here, because this is a serious trek. It's 18 days. If you've never done a trek for over 2 weeks, whether it's at altitude or not, it's something to consider. Backing yourself up for 18 days. It doesn't always mean that you have to be physically, you need to be physically fit, but this is where it starts to become more of a mental challenge. How do you stay positive over 18 days? So Namche Bazaar, everybody knows Namche, seems high when you're just looking at some of the lower treks, but just start having a look at some of those places that you'll be visiting above Namche Bazaar. This is a serious trek. From Namche, our trip heads past Tengboche, Dingboche, and it goes to this pass called the Kongmala Pass. Out of the 3 passes, this is the toughest pass. And from the Kongmala Pass, we cross over into the Everest sort of base camp region, if you will, up to Gorak Shep, which was the original Everest base camp. Everest base camp itself, it's a bit of a misnomer. It's a rock that says Everest base camp. I do undersell it a lot because I think there's so many better places to visit, but I understand how Everest base camp as a word and an idea draws a lot of people. Kalapatar, which translates to Black Rock, which is a better viewpoint of the Everest peak. You can just sort of see behind the picture on me, the top of Everest there, actually. A lot of people, that's the Everest Nuptse wall in front of it. That's what people will mainly see, is that just that. So this trek, once it takes you away from this area and heads over the Chola Pass into the Gokyo region, from Gokyo Ri, as far as I'm concerned, best view in the region. You'll start to see the north face of Everest, and obviously other mountains as well. You get 8,000 meter peaks you can see from here. And then a lot of people never visit this side of the valley, and so crossing the Renjo La, 5,345 meters to come out through Tame village, Tame being where Tenzing Norgay was born. So you can see just from in that 18 days, you are doing everything. If you're undecided on which one to do, a lot of people do go to this. But as I said, make sure you're ready for it. It's not a reason alone just to do it. Who does this kind of thing? Well, I've been the marketing manager, director, whatever you want to call here, for almost 30 years. And I often joke that, the advent of digital marketing has made it easier. But the one thing I can never find in all my segments on Facebook or Google is that spirit that connects people together to want to do something as quote unquote crazy as this. This is not your usual holiday. You'll be talking to your friends. They'll be looking at you. Some of them you might think fitter. And they'll be looking at you. Why would you do this? That's a hard thing to explain. It's a personal journey, but I really think it's a sense of achievement, that feeling of pride that you have in yourself, what you can actually achieve. There's often a saying in adventure travel, the best part's before and after. During it, sometimes you will ask yourself, why am I doing this? And it's okay, because, when you're challenging yourself on anything, I'm sure you get that. But at the end, once you feel the rewards of accomplishment, you understand exactly why. But you can see from this group here, we've got people from 24 up till 70. It's all possible. The 24-year-old is going to be quicker. He's going to be quicker than me, the 50-year-old, and I might be a little bit quicker than the 70-year-olds. But, that's when you go to Nepal, it's good to try and switch off. It's easier said than done from the Western competitiveness and the need to be first or the need to achieve. It really doesn't matter. In the end, we're all there for our own reasons. We're all going to see the same things. And the difference between the first person in camp and the last person in camp could be the difference of 20 minutes. You've got to try and not focus on those things and just focus on yourselves to do this at your own pace. And that's how you'll really enjoy it. But, the three high passes on the Everest Three Passes Trek, here they are. The Khumbu, which is the first one and the toughest, not just because it's the highest, it's a bit tricky. Now, disclaimer, I didn't get across the Khumbu. No one got across the Khumbu. I just completed this trek maybe a couple of weeks ago, and we had some unusual heavy snowfall in the Everest region. A lot of the images I'm going to show you have more snow in them than they usually do. This was in November. Historically, people, common question is, when's the best time to go? My answer to that is when you have the time to go. You don't know what's going to happen with weather anymore. Some people will say it's for whatever reasons, and I'm not here to talk them all out. I'm just about to say here, when you're dealing with the wilderness, anything can happen and you need to be prepared. You need to be prepared for a potential dump of snowfall at the wrong time of year. You need to be equipped. You need to have your crampons. So the three passes, the Khumbu, the Chola, and the Renjola. They're the three key passes of the region. But on top of that, and that's all over 5,000 meters, you've got some side summits, if you will. Kalapata, which I mentioned to you, Black Rock, Gokyo Ri, and Everest Base Camp. There's another few things over 5,000 meters. So there's a lot of time above 5,000 meters. And look, it's a stunning, beautiful trek. This is on top of the Chola Pass. Our group made it there. But the big stat that I think people need to consider is that you will spend 8 to 10 consecutive days above 4,000 meters. Now, that's very high for us sea level loving people. At 4,000 meters, sounds obvious, but you're 4 kilometers closer to the sun. And that means the exposure above the tree line, this amount of snow during the daytime, it could feel really hot when all the UV and the light is bouncing off you. One of the first things I learned trekking in Nepal over 20 years ago was you've got to cover everything up. The back of my hands got really burnt. I had everything covered but the back of my hands. And that light is piercing and you need to be protected. So we've just covered the passes, the side trips, and the 8 to 10 consecutive days about 4,000 meters. At the start of the trip, you might be walking for about 4 to 6 hours a day, which is great. You could probably do that before lunch. If you have a late lunch and we start about 7. Now, we had unusual snowfall. This here is the line of ants on the cake that I like to call it, coming back from Everest Base Camp. And there is, a lot of talk about how busy these places have become. I don't really buy into that too much. You know, naturally they're going to be busy. When people mention, look how many people there are, I like to remember that I'm also here. I also want to appreciate the beauty. I think it's okay. You go with respect. You respect the other people. It's a bit disappointing to see how some people are not very polite on the trail. But, you know, we go to concerts and supermarkets where there's a lot of other people. The brilliant thing about our company and our guides is they will try and hold you back or take you a slightly different way. In some cases, there's no other way. But yeah, you know, on the Everest Base Camp Trail, you're going to see this. On other sections of the trail of the Everest High Passes, you will not see this. So it's a small section where you sort of see a crowd and just expect it. The terrain is also very challenging. You know, you go from a mixture of rock to snow to ice. This is approaching the Khumbu Pass. This is the one night that you will camp on this trek. We used to do all camping-based treks probably 10, 20 years ago. And it's still a highlight of the trip. I mean, this tent I put here, it doesn't probably give you the scale of this rock it was hiding behind. But this is when things started to get exciting. There is one night wilderness camping, and from the group that I had, my understanding was it was probably one of the highlights of their night in terms of being marveling at how our guides can prepare a meal at somewhere so remote. This is the back. Most people know Arma de Blam. This mountain here is the backside of Arma de Blam. And that picture itself gives you an idea of how you're going to see the Everest region differently. This is coming back from Everest Base Camp, Primori there, just to give you an idea of the snow. Now, we weren't expecting that snow, but it happened. You know, we do suggest that you go and get crampons for typically the chola on this trip. Most people don't have crampons. I would suggest when they say, if you know, we got them in Kathmandu, it's totally fine. When they say, do you want the cheap ones or the good ones? Get the good ones. You know, you never know. In the end, we wore ours for 10 days straight. And some people had crampons that were starting to fall apart. Always, if you go buy gear in Kathmandu, make it more accessory, incidental stuff. For me, that includes, you know, drinking bottles, walking poles. And sorry, one bit of housekeeping I didn't say at the start there. If you have a question as I'm talking, feel free. There is a Q&A section where you can type in a question. It'll pop up on the screen. We'll answer them at the end, but just be mindful that you can ask questions as they come to you. But, you know, shells and things that you really need to rely on in the wilderness, I would say never get from Kathmandu. Get the city, not the store. Get it from Australia, because you want to make sure that these things work. Now, these are the trails that I'd love to have shown you. This is the approach. This is just heading from Tangbache to a place called Pangbache. And this is where it starts to open up and it gets really, really exciting in the first half of the trek. Arma de Blam, you can see mouse right here, Arma de Blam here, Nuptse here, Everest just poking its way there. But you can see as you get closer, you see less of Everest. If you really, really, really just want to go there to see Everest, if Everest is your thing, go to Tibet, go to the north side. Beautiful shot from there. You don't have to go this far. The closer you get, the less you see. But if you're there really to have an adventure, to get an understanding of the Everest region, the Sherpa people, how people live here, and you can do it, go for this trek for sure. But be prepared for crossing glaciers in snow. Our guides and porters don't need crampons like we do. You know, it's normal for them. In some cases, they will use it, but they're having fun. This is Choyu, taking a picture on the glaciers from Gokyo to Choyu. This is Gokyo, heading up to the Renjola Pass. The key thing when there is a bit of snow, you'll see the trail. And, you know, on the pictures like this, it's great. You can walk wherever you want. As the snow starts to get a bit thicker and deeper, you have to follow whatever trail someone else cut. If you're a tall person, maybe you're keeping your legs a bit more together. If you're a short person, maybe you have to make some higher steps. So that it, you know, 20 years ago, just walking into the Everest region was a little bit wild, but it's very well graded. There's like some railings there. There's even sections of steps and concreted pathways on the way up to Namche Bazaar. It's not as adventurous getting up to Namche Bazaar as it used to be. But beyond that, if you really want an adventure, you will start to get hopefully what you're expecting. So, you know, the reason you do this trek, it is comprehensive. There's amazing views of all these different mountains. But you do need to be prepared. This is where traveling with a company like World Expeditions comes in. We've been doing this for 50 years. There's a few things we've learned along the way. And for me, it's the basics of saying there's no such thing as bad weather, bad clothing. Watching people dry their shoes every night. If you had the right shoes, you shouldn't have to do that. If you had the right shells, you shouldn't have to do that. If you had a pair of gaiters on, you shouldn't have to do that. So a lot of people will battle their way on an Everest trek. And we saw another group, you know, one of the key differences between our company and a lot of other companies are the inclusions. And a lot of people will get sticker shock. They'll look at the price, you know, it just seems like a straight line. Oh, Everest Base Camp, they're doing this, or Everest Circuit, they're doing this, Everest High Passes, they're doing this, they're doing this. Why are they so much cheaper? You get what you pay for, right? You pay nothing, you get nothing. And we provide a down jacket, the kit bag. You know, a lot of people don't have kit bag. These things are good for the porters. This little thing here is the most underrated piece of equipment, which is a thermal sort of fleece, I should say, inner liner for your sleeping bag. And then a sleeping bag that's suitable for the conditions. If you were to buy any of these items, you would spend a lot of money. Maybe you would save a little bit of money on buying a puffer jacket that really isn't made for Himalayan conditions. And we saw a lot of people, I saw a lot of people in the region with wet feet, maybe puffer jackets that wouldn't keep you warm in George Street here. They didn't take a sleeping bag because they're going to rely on some of the tea house blankets and what have you. And look, quite frankly, they'll put on a brave face, but they were cold, they were tired, and they were hungry. And you're about to spend a good deal of your life for one of the most memorable occasions that you travel things that you'll ever do in your life. And why do it the wrong way? Why try and save a bit of money? If you don't know how cold it could possibly get at 4,000 or 5,000 meters, why take the risk? Because it's just not enjoyable. Let's be honest. If you're finding it hard, if you're finding there's a lack of oxygen, then all of a sudden you're cold. To me, it's almost negligent what some people don't offer. The one other big inclusion, there's a couple of big inclusions, not just the kit, is the food. Now, an army marches on a full stomach, and never more so than in Nepal. You need your calories because you're burning them every day. And, you know, maybe some young people can live on dal bhat, and there's T-shirts all over saying dal bhat power 24-hour. But most of the people that come from places that I live want a little bit more food. And we supply it in droves. It's usually a 3-course dinner, and I'm just focusing on dinner on this slide. Now, soup, we want to make sure that your liquids are up. Popcorn or papadums, just to make it a little bit more fun with the entree. Now, it was about $11 to 1,000 Nepali rupees. So I took a picture of the menu in one of these lodges, and I wrote down what we offer. And, you know, this is where AI was helpful to get me this comparison. But, you know, we'll feed you with rice, noodles, chicken dishes, pizzas, what have you. If you want to eat like us, dinner is going to cost you $50 to $65. Times that by 13 on the treks that don't include it. Then you've got your lunch. I saw a lot of people just having a boiled egg at the top of the Renjo La. Maybe if you're young, you push yourself through. But if you want to treat yourself, maybe you'd like to have the lunches we had when we come down for the Renjo La, which again is 3-course. Just a cup of tea. And then beyond that, you know, there's people that like to have seconds. So if you want seconds of anything, double this. So to give you an idea, when you're doing your research on Nepal treks, I leave you with one question. How much will your trek really cost you? You can go about and trying to save every penny that you can, but you will. And if you're tough, that's great. Go for it. You'll have a decent experience. But over 50 years, food, warmth, shelter. We don't have to go Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but we know what people need out in the wilderness to have a comfortable experience so that you can actually look at the views and just focus on that. So these might seem like little things, but once you start looking at the prices of different treks in the region, the obvious things that are left out, food and equipment, which to me are pretty important. Now, obviously, the camps, we call this the In Comfort Everest High Passes in Comfort. A lot of our trips have the words in comfort. We used to be a hardcore trekking company. That's what we came from. Everyone was trekking on the ground. Anyone that's done a trek would realize that just having a bed is, that's just a nice bit comfortable. We don't have to get off. We don't have to sleep on the ground. Having a pillow, having extra blankets, and having location. A lot of people don't like the crowds. And so this is just one of the early camps in Wanjo where it's just taken off the beaten track. These camps, all except for one, have Wi-Fi. You can charge your phone. You're able to charge your phone in most places in the Everest region. Once you start to get a bit higher, you may have to pay for it. Maybe you can charge your phone, but not your battery power bank. So take a power bank, just charge your phone as much as you need to. Try not to look at everything, do all the little tricks to keep the brightness down to let it save. I took 2 power banks. It was more than I needed. I probably only needed 1 really good power bank. That's our Khumbu camp. Some people spend 2 days in Namche. Our itinerary takes 2 days to get to Namche Bazaar. That's all about acclimatisation. From Namche, we used to spend 2 nights, but we just do a little walk over the Everest View Hotel down to this place called Khumbu, which, as you can see, it's got Ama Dablam down the mountain. It's just to keep you walking, takes you through Khumbu village. You can visit the school that is a legacy of Sir Edmund Hillary's work in the area. But these are all good looking pictures without snow. And then one day it can happen. You can get snow. This is Dingbashay village. And it's like anything in the outdoors, you take all your equipment, all your medical kit. You hope you never have to use them, but if you do have to use them, you're very happy that you've got them. But these camps, not just it's not just the camps. We have, heated dining rooms as well. You can see we've gone out of our way to make them a little bit more comfortable, a little bit of a sanctuary for you at the end of the day to get out of the elements. But the key thing in this picture really that I want to highlight is the staff. Actually, I will get to that next thing. Our camps, great. The camps that we can't control, maybe you might not say great. This is Gorak Shep. The guide told me that a lot of people are always a little bit disturbed about how basic it is up there. You get to a place like Gorak Shep, which was the old Everest base camp, which a lot of people use, which are out of the control of any company. And, our guides have to race ahead to get the best rooms. My mate Greg here had a room with the window. The room on the right didn't have a window. I took that on board, figured it might be a little bit warmer with no window, but there's a bed. And you have to remember that we're in the Everest region. Everything has to be carried up there. It's a harsh, remote environment. So as long as you're out of the elements and you're safe, should be what you should be hoping for more than the highest levels of accommodation. If that's what you're after, this is probably not the type of trip for you. But I mentioned the staff. Now, it's the little things like that, not even little things. These guys are the reason everyone is safe in the Everest region. Simple as that. Your porters, they are carrying the equipment for you. Your sirdar here, he's making sure all the porters are looked after. There's a cook who makes sure that everything is prepared for you hygienically. When we can't use our own kitchen, they're going in and they're managing the kitchen. Little things like we provide you boiled water. I was looking at one group at Gokyo. There were 16 people. Each one of them had a liter bottle of water. That's 16 bottles of water. That's just dinner. Times that by 3. We're up to almost 50 bottles of water. Times that by however long your trek is. You don't think about it, but where do those bottles go? Do you want to add to these plastic bottles? Or we could just do a simple thing like we boil the water for you. There's lots of little things like washing water that we bring in the morning and in the evening. There's a point where you can't get a hot shower, usually after Namche. And these little touches of comfort are very much appreciated. Our porters are very well looked after. You can see here, they're all in their kit. There's some people that aren't using porters anymore. They're using pack animals, and that's fine. One reason we like to use porters is these boys travel with you. You're smiling at them every day. You have the opportunity to interact with them. There's culture with you on the trip. All these boys come from remote regions away from Lukla and the Everest region, so that the money they're earning is going back to the regions that they come from. And the money they earn on the trip is the money they get to keep. Some people that have porters in the old days, because there's not as many porters anymore, they'd have to find somewhere to stay. They'd have to find something to eat. And they basically have to dress themselves out of the money that they earn. So we try and do the right thing by addressing all that, even whilst they're waiting. I didn't know this before, but whilst they're waiting for a new group, we've got a place in Lukla where they can stay and camp for free whilst there's new work going on. But you cook and then your main guide. And these guys are consistently watching your every step. They know from your first meal how you eat, and they will watch you eat. And if you don't look like you eat, they'll know you have altitude, issues before you will. They'll know if you're feeling bad before you will. And they'll know when there's an icy river crossing or a potential danger, and they will be all around you looking after you before you even know that there's danger there. You go through these trips without a hiccup, with barely a thing to worry about. It was no accident. It was our staff just being wonderful. And as I mentioned, we have been doing this. We just recently had our 50th anniversary treks up there. This is a gentleman here. You might know him. He's one of Australia's first two Everest climbers, Tim McCartney-Snape. It's the passion and energy of people like these and the knowledge that have helped us lead the way in the Everest region. We're proud of our people in all of Nepal, if you will. And, having that level of engagement with local people allows us to show you an authentic experience. This was a little party we had up there. No other company in the world would be able to put something on like this. I've been working with this company for a long time. I honestly feel like no other company really does what we do anymore. Adventure travel is a bit of a term that's, used by sort of 18 to 25-year-old bus companies now. But for us, it started as trekking in Nepal. That's our baseline. We have treks that we might grade moderate, that others might grade introductory. That's fine. I think it'd be great, then I'd like to lobby for this, that there's be a uniform grading across every trip, so it's less confusion for you guys. But the idea really is read the material, have a look at it. If it says 6 to 10 hour days for a week in a row above 4,000 meters, give that respect. It's going to be hard. If you're up for that challenge, you'll probably likely do it, as long as you've got it all fixed up here. But if that's something that doesn't sound like it's up for you, there's many other treks in the Everest region to enjoy. I would suggest to people, for me personally, Gokyo Lakes. That's where you will have a beautiful trek, something different, a little bit quiet. Gokyo Reed, best region. If you must see more of Everest and must go to Everest Base Camp, obviously there's Everest Base Camp. You could combine those with Everest Circuit, which goes over the Gokyo. Or if you want to do one of the passes, you could do Gokyo that goes over the Renjola. Once you start looking at our range, you'll realize how it all kind of works. There's the complete, it's all, I always call it how far along the straight line do you want to walk, this far, this far, this far. Slight variations on the theme. But sometimes that detail might be hard to get from the information. And if it is, that's why you should get in touch with us. I strongly encourage people, some people book this trek without talking to us. I strongly encourage that you talk to someone and make sure it's the right trek for you, because the last thing you want to do is be out in the wilderness for 18 days, because there's no way out. There's no bus, there's no anything. Once you're committed, you're committed. And, you do hear stories of people feigning an injury just to get the helicopter out. That's really not cool. It's best that you know that you're ready for this trip. So that's the Everest High Passes. If anyone has any questions, if I've missed anything, please now on the question and answer, I'll give people a couple of minutes to ask something. If not, naturally, you can always get in touch with us here in the office. So slight pause while I see no questions. Hopefully that might mean I covered everything. Okay, what hiking shoes would you recommend? Good question. Probably the best question. Your feet are your friends for 18 days. It is worthy on investing on the best boots you can get. I'm not going to recommend a brand, but the thing I would say is it is the sole. I've learned over the years Vibram soles are good. There's some people say there's different types of Vibram soles, but these soles are good. And a waterproof upper. You know, I have a pair of Scarpas. I've got a high length boot. I don't think it's about twisting ankles. It's more about if you were walking through snow in low cut boots and you didn't have gaiters, or if you did have gaiters, there's a better chance of stuff getting into your boot. I've played basketball for a long time, so I don't think that high cut boots really have any protection for your ankles, but waterproof high cut boots with a good sole that are well broken in, because you do not want to get a blister and test them out whilst you're walking. What is the heating like in the tents? There's no heating in the tents. There's heating in the dining areas. You know, we're getting up to high altitudes. The way they heat, we're not allowed to use wood. Wood adds to deforestation, so we use cow dung, the way people have been heating there for a long time. And the heat dissipates, essentially. So unfortunately, there's going to be that little bit of uncomfortableness from you getting from the dining tent into your sleeping bag. But I can tell you that once you're in your sleeping bag, you get your sleeping bag, you're on the mattress, you have your inner fleece. Both my water bottles had hot water in them, and I put one down in my feet, one in there. You know, you maybe have a thermal top. If you're layering correctly, and plus the extra blankets, you will not get cold. It's a big statement to say, but if you're doing it properly, and like, you know, I cut my hair before I did it, just make sure I wear a beanie, just make sure you attend to the basics. And you know, in little tents, body heat. So there's no heating in the tents, unfortunately. What did you do in November when you couldn't get over the pass in the snow? We had to come back down and go around it. And that'll be the same case. And, you know, it's an interesting thing that you bring that up, and thanks for bringing that up, because, you know, our Nepali guides are wonderful. They do their best to keep people happy. You know, I'm in Indian descent. There's still a bit of, you know, old world, yes, sir, no, sir. They do whatever they want, and they don't want to upset you. And some people, you know, might not know why aren't we going that fast. But with fresh snow, they knew that, you know, if you had a good chance of twisting your ankle as soon as you went through. And what are you going to do once you twist your ankle? You know, either they help you down off the pass. It's an awkward situation they don't want you to get into, and they don't want to get into again. What are the best months re-weather to do this trek? It's not a question I like to answer, because I went in typical best weather and I'm showing you all the snow. I've talking to Tim McCartney Snape. He sort of wants some of this. He's hoping that, you know, let the winter weather pattern set in, and then he knows what he's doing. He'll do a trek in December, January. It's cold, but it's empty trails. And so if you don't want the people, that's the best time to go. Traditionally, people say October, November. I think we had a lot of rain in October, which had treks that couldn't even get people to Tangbache. We had this snow. So a lot of the information that we've always said and repeated it's almost out the window. That's why I get a bit nervous about that question. But traditionally, what it means is clearer weather, clearer views. And we had 4 days out of 18 that we couldn't see anything, but clearer views. Later on you'll get just as clear in winter and clearer trails, but it is colder. And then as you get into the spring, the rhododendrons will come out. It might get a little bit warmer, but it could get a bit hazier. And, you know, if you're looking up and there's clouds and you don't see your views, you might feel like that's not. But typically between October to, say, April, that's the window. That's the window. Best is a really hard thing to say. Me, again, I've been several times in Nepal and seen the Kathmandu sites. Are you okay if I don't join for the Kathmandu intro tours? No problems. And, you know, I don't think that, people doing this trek, they've obviously seen Kathmandu. It's not the reason they're going there. One important thing that we have to tell you, we don't do the Kathmandu intro tours anymore. The reason being, there's so much air traffic now coming in and out of Kathmandu airport that people now have to go to a place called Ramachap to fly into the Everest region in Lukla. It's not something we want people to do. It's just something we don't have a choice. So there's now a 5-hour drive to Ramachap. Cannot be avoided. Every company has to do it. With tourism down a little bit, we were able to get a direct flight back to Lukla. There's no guarantee that you will do that, but that's something that's become, you know, it's already a 22-day trip. We don't want to turn into 23, 24-day trips. So that sightseeing day has been turned into that transfer day. As a single person, would I normally share a tent? I'm fine with that also. Yeah, all our trips are based on sharing. We will find someone to share with you. If it happens to be that you're the single female and there's all other blokes or what have you, you will get the room on your own. If you ask for a single supplement, we can organize a single supplement. It must be noted that there's a massive caveat on that. When you get to some lodges like Gokya, when you start getting up high and there's limited accommodation in a lot of people, it may be that you do have to share. That's beyond our control. We can go in and ask the best that we can. Obviously, when it's our camps, Radisson, what have you, we can control it. We can ensure the single supplement. But when it gets outside of our control, yeah, we can't promise or guarantee it. Beautiful. Look, I strongly encourage this trip. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. And I'd love to do more. And there were days where I was like, why am I doing this? As soon as you're tipping the boys at the end and that wholesome feeling that you feel from the Nepali crew, it really reminds you why you do it and why you'll do it again. I strongly encourage you all to go to Nepal. It was safe. I know that there was some issues there earlier. You don't feel it. You know, I've always said to people, if there's an issue in Darwin, do you not go to Sydney? You know, that the country is not on the brink of some kind of trouble. And we would not send you there. And yes, you can look at travel advisors and you have to listen to your government because they control insurance, but they really are putting out information there for the lowest common denominators. You know, they're the government. They have to be conservative. Thank you, Vach, for this. Fully pumped for my trip in April. You should be. It's an extraordinary trek. And once you've done this, maybe you might consider Island Peak or Mirror Peak or doing something different. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Again, if you have any more questions, email them through later. But get out there and go have a go. Thank you very much. See ya.